Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year. I do want to apologise for the delays in this coming out. I've had to work New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But for now, we're going to be predicting all 16 games in Week 18 of the 2025 NFL season. Last week wasn't great for me. I went 7-9. Some big time predictions wrong. We had lots of shocks last week, like Lions losing to the Vikings, Chargers losing to the Texans, Packers getting destroyed by the Ravens, and of course, that one I didn't expect either. And of course, the Rams managed to have thrown 3 interceptions in one game, despite only throwing 5 all season to lose to the Falcons. Okay, so week 18, I'm currently on 151 and 104. So even if I go 0-16, I'm going to have a winning record in my first season of predictions. Let's get started. First up is one of the matches that will determine who wins the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both these teams losing last week. The Panthers, they got, let's say they met their match in the Seattle Seahawks, and the Buccaneers losing to the Miami Dolphins last week. So both these teams losing. It's been played in Tampa, but I'm not sure that's going to help. I'm actually going to go with Carolina to get a win, sweep the Buccaneers, and win the NFC South. Of course, if they lose this, but Atlanta beats New Orleans, the Panthers still win the NFC South. So, they're in a really good position to win the NFC South. I'm picking Carolina to win this game. Sorry, Tampa, but your streak of winning NFC South is, according to this, coming to an end. Then, this is going to determine who wins the NFC West. And there's some other things going on as well. The Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Both these teams winning last week. The Seahawks, as previously mentioned, beating the Panthers. And the 49ers have picked up a very closely fought win over the Chicago Bears, who are a very good team. This one, I know people are predicting the 49ers are going to win this, but I'm actually going to say Seattle. Yes, the 49ers beat a better opponent, and it's at home, but I still believe in Seattle. I'm picking Seattle to win this, and maybe get the #1 seed. Who knows? Sorry, I just had to mute myself. Then we have the New Orleans Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints, they picked up a win over the Tennessee Titans last week, and they've had a late season resurgence, but unfortunately, they're going to have a losing season. They're going to be 7-10 at best. And the Falcons, they shocked everyone by beating the Rams last week. They capitalized on the Rams' mistakes, especially the turnovers, and for that, I'm actually going to pick the Falcons to win this. New Orleans have been really good against NFC South opponents, but I'm going to pick the Falcons to win this. Moving on, we have the Cleveland Browns taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Both these teams winning last week. The Browns, they defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers in a shocking result, which does dampen the Steelers' attempts to win the AFC North. I almost said South. North last week, and the Bengals beating the poor Arizona Cardinals last week. Not much to say about this one. On paper, Cincinnati should have this game in hand, but obviously it's not being played on paper, it's been played on a football field. I'm going with Cincinnati. 7-10 after a start like that, it's not too bad. Then, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers, despite losing to the Baltimore Ravens last week, with the Lions losing to the Vikings last week, they've already sealed their spot in the postseason. And of course the Vikings, as I mentioned, beating the Detroit Lions last week. So, honestly, I like Green Bay's chances to win here. I know it's given the edge to Minnesota. This one I did debate, but I'm actually going to pick Green Bay. And there's not too much more I'm going to say, really. Jordan Love is going to be a new father soon. He's announced that. Oh, I think his wife announced that on Instagram. I'm assuming. Sorry, just one second. That's not how you spell love. Let's have a look. Alright. They got married in June, yeah. Okay. So I just had to check that. I didn't know if they were actually married or not. They did in June 2025. Okay. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys taking on the New York Giants. Both these teams winning last week. The Cowboys beating the Washington Commanders. What? Oh yes. And the Giants beating the Raiders, which actually hurts their chances of getting that #1 pick. Because now the Raiders hold it and they have to take on the Chiefs. But I think that win is going to be a bit of a short-lived victory. I'm picking Dallas to get a win. Dak Prescott's been excellent towards the end of the season. Although was only had a completion percentage of 51.4, but 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, not for an interception in the last 3 weeks. Which, if he continues that trend, I believe Dallas will have the win. Probably should close that. Sorry, New York. Then we have the Tennessee Titans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Titans, as I mentioned, losing to the New Orleans Saints last week. And the Jaguars, they picked up a closely fought win over the Indianapolis Colts. I'm sorry, Tennessee, but I don't see any way you're winning this. Jacksonville's far too good to lose this. Well, I said that, and then the Rams lost to the Falcons, so, and the Panthers. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of the Colts, we have them taking on the Houston Texans. The Colts, as I mentioned, losing a close matchup to the Jaguars last week, and Houston Texans, they beat the Los Angeles Chargers last week in a pretty comfortable performance. And for that, I'm picking Houston. They're in the postseason. Indianapolis isn't, but I still believe the Texans are going to fight for a higher seeding. The division is still up for grabs if they beat if the Jaguars lose. So I'm really tired, despite being in bed until 11 AM. Anyway, next up we have the New York Jets taking on the Buffalo Bills. both these teams losing last week. The Jets, they got blown out by the Patriots, and the Bills losing by 1 point to the Philadelphia Eagles, even though I predicted they were going to win. And I'm going to predict they're going to win again. Hopefully they don't let me down again. But I do believe that Buffalo is going to win this matchup against the New York Jets. And once again, as I said quite a lot of times this season, sorry New York. I know I'm kind of rushing it, but I don't really have much to say. Then we have the Detroit Lions taking on the Chicago Bears. Lions lost to the Vikings and they're out of the postseason. The Bears, even though they lost to the 49ers last week, they've still clinched the NFC North. So congratulations, Chicago. Now you had to go to your good old friend Detroit. Caleb Williams has been a really good quarterback, especially under pressure in that Packers game. The one that the Bears won, of course. I was going to reach for a drink behind me, but I realised I've drunk it all earlier today, so I'm going to pick Chicago to win. Nothing I just said made sense, but I do believe Chicago is going to pull out this win. Then we have the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Denver Broncos. The Chargers, they couldn't beat over the Houston Texans defense last week, and there they had to face another good defense in the Denver Broncos. The Broncos picked up a win against the Mahomes-less Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, Patrick. I think, just like Houston, Denver is probably going to be too much for the Chargers to overcome. So, picking Denver to get a win. 14-3. Very good season for Denver. Then we have a meaningless matchup. The Chiefs against the Raiders. Both these teams losing last week. The Raiders losing to the Giants. And the Chiefs losing to the Broncos. Honestly, I think it's in the best interest of Raiders fans to lose this game. So I'm going to give the Chiefs the win. And it didn't save. There we go. Kansas, you're 7-10. What a turnaround, man. AFC champions. And now you're 7-10. Anyway, you have the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Both these teams losing last week. Arizona getting blown up by the Bengals, and the Rams, Matthew Stafford throwing 3 interceptions to blow the game against Atlanta. Honestly, I believe Sean McVay has said that they are going to be playing starters in this game, which is like, they still want the 5 seed. This game will determine if they have the 5 seed or the 6 seed. But I do believe that the Rams will bounce back with a win over Arizona. They've had some brutal losses recently. Most of them are completely their own fault. Stafford has been playing really high-level football, except against the Falcons. If he can continue playing high-level, I believe the Rams should be in a good position in the postseason to take on maybe the winner of the NFC South, or maybe even Chicago or Philadelphia. We don't know. So I'm picking the Rams to win this game. I hope they don't let me down like they did last week. And now, the Miami Dolphins taking on the New England Patriots. Both these teams picking up wins last week. The Dolphins squeaking away a win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And as previously mentioned, the Patriots absolutely blowing out the New York Jets. and it's going to be a competition between them and the Broncos to see who gets the #1 seed in the AFC. The Patriots already clinched the AFC East, but they're competing with Denver. Sorry, a notification has popped up on my phone. Ooh, okay, that's right. Sorry for that distraction. There's an interesting news story that came from my phone. I thought it was interesting anyway, so I'm picking the Patriots to win. Then, the penultimate game that I have to predict. The Washington Commanders taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Washington, a brutal loss to Dallas last week. Eagles, should not be that close, but a well-fought victory over the Buffalo Bills. I don't think there's going to be any real contest. I'm picking Philadelphia to win this game. And for now, the final game. This one game will determine who wins the AFC North. Baltimore against Pittsburgh. Baltimore beating the Packers last week in a dominant victory. And the Pittsburgh Steelers losing to the Cleveland Browns. I'm actually going to pick Baltimore here, even though it's been played in Pittsburgh. I think Baltimore has the momentum and will have a slight edge going into this game. Number of points, I'm going to pick 42. And that's it. All the game's predictions. And I was actually not far off the tiebreaker last week. So, let's hope I get a decent record this week. I want 160, ideally. 160 and 109 would be nice. But for now, I hope you had a good New Year. And I'll see you, well, next time. Bye for now.